Good morning, Keith.
Morning to you.
It's a pleasure to have you as my guest on Chat with Chithra. How are you today?
I'm very well, extremely well. It's not a great day, but I try and get my 5,000 steps in every day, and that helps to keep me fit.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Sydney Benbow walking past at the right time and you securing the Liberia job offer, which came out of the blue. Do you believe in luck?
I mean, I grade level of cricket, and I always say that you have to be at the wicket to hit the sixes. So to that degree, I sort of believe I have a guardian angel as well, and I equally believe that luck works two ways: is bad luck and good luck. Um, the mysteries, the deeper mysteries of the universe are beyond me, really. I just have an instinct, however crazy that sounds, that I do have a guardian angel. Who that is and what it is, I don't know.
This is really, it sounds very magical. What was your ambition in your growing years like?
In the middle of Aston, in Birmingham, in a back terraced house, where there was a real sense of community, security. You've heard all the stories, you know, you could leave the house in the summer after breakfast at 9 o'clock and come back at 5 or 6 o'clock when you were relatively young,
Mm.
and you were safe, and your parents knew that you were safe, and therefore you learned about life and people. You know, you bullied and you got bullied and you did stupid things and stupid things were done to you, and you just grew up in an environment where there was an underlying sense of security.
Right. Who were your role models? I read somewhere that you wanted to fulfill your mother's dreams. She must have been one of your role models, I'm sure.
That's absolutely right. My role model, I think, with many boys, was my father. My father was a very stern Victorian man, but my mother, I didn't realize it then, but I've since divined in my own mind that my mother was a woman living in a man's world, and she had three boys. All of my father's sisters thought that the whole world should revolve around our George, my father, and mom was meant to be subordinate to him in a nicest possible way. There was nothing venomous about it, but she therefore had to live through her three boys, and she did. She gave and she put all of herself into us. And she was an amazing woman, strong woman.
Mm, mm, that's interesting. What is success to you?
Um, I think, firstly, it isn't just book learning; it's actually the real world. Going out. I started work. You touched on Sydney Benbow early on in one of your early questions. Um, I started work at 15, virtually the day I left school. And I was lucky enough to get a job with a firm of chartered accountants in Birmingham. And they told me that if I got my six O levels, or five in one, or six in two, because I left school without any O levels, I wasn't even invited to take them. I was told that if I got those O levels, then they would give me 5 years articles. Well, I failed them. It took 3 years to get these O levels. But during those time, I started off as the lowest of the low, and you learn an awful lot when people don't notice you, when people look through you because you aren't important. You were filling the ink wells almost, and we did literally use ink then and dip our pens into it in our audit. And so I learned a lot about people, and I think I learned it slowly, and I learned it in a way that there was no pressure on me at the time, and I could absorb the lessons. And then after 3 years, I started my articles, and then I did the book learning. I read and learned the. I'll turn this thing off. I learned my profession for sure, and it's important to have some learning. It's important to have some knowledge, but it was that grounding really in the real world and understanding, starting to get an instinct of what makes people tick. Because
Mm,
if you don't understand the people who are working for you,
mm,
you won't be able to get the best out of them.
true. As a 15-year-old, what was it that you wanted to be? What was your ambition?
But you know, it's a strange thing, and when I say it, it sounds totally implausible. because, as I say, I wasn't even invited to take my O-levels. And when I went to the youth employment officer, I said I want to be a chartered accountant. Now, why I said that, I really can't be absolutely certain in my own mind. I just decided that that's something I would say. And I was told that, well, you haven't got any O-levels, your school report isn't very good, and your parents don't have any money. Because at that time, you had to pay for articles. You had to pay a premium for your articles. So it was true my parents didn't have any money. I wasn't too pleased about that because, well, how did they know that? They couldn't be sure of that. But in a sense, that was the beginning of that period of just getting into it. And I, as you mentioned earlier on, I walked across Great Charles Street to Lombard House on Great Charles Street onto the 4th floor, and it was a bit like boys from the black stuff, you know, gives us a job. And they were about to kick me out when this amazing man, Sid Benbow, walked out, put me into his office, and I came out with a job at 25 shillings a week, and they were charging me out of 5 shillings an hour, so they weren't doing too badly on it. And that was my break, really. But it was purely, I don't know. I walked across the road, and I don't know why they went in that lift to the 4th floor at Lombard House, but that's actually what happened. That was the journey.
You would attribute that to good luck or destiny or God's blessings.
It was lucky that I went to the right place at the right time, and Sid Benbow literally came out of his office and walked in the reception as they were about to kick me out. That was luck, but I suppose I did put myself at the wicket. I was there, and I put myself at bat. So I suppose there was an element of luck, but destiny, yes, I suppose it was. I guess we all have our destiny.
That was destiny, perhaps. Fantastic. So good to know. Yes, it's so good to know. That was a perfect timing, I would say, which has changed your life. And of course, thereafter, it was more to do with your hard work, perseverance, and commitment. Very, very inspiring. To reach these levels of success, you require a great deal of dedication and motivation. How do you do this, and how do you remain positive when you're faced with such inherent obstacles? What did you do actually differently? What did you do differently?
I think I've always been a bit bloody minded.
Sorry?
I've always been a bit bloody minded, and determined. I can't put it any more to that. I looked at the obstacles, and I overcame them. I can't put it anymore. I can't give you any more clarity than that. I was ambitious and persistent, because I did the first. It's a matter of record that in the first year, at the age of 16, I took 6 O-levels, and I failed every single one of them. So I ain't the brightest penny in the purse. You know, when the good Lord was handing out the brains, I didn't get an excessive amount of them. But I've learned that if you persist, and if your destiny, if you like, the Lady Luck is with you, then you get to these hurdles, and then you get to the one hurdle, and you immediately see where the next one is. And there's no context to it there. There's no grand ambition. There's just, here's a hurdle, here's a challenge. Let's see what we can do about it.
So true. Yeah. You've held many responsible positions in your life. What is it that you're most proud of?
I'm proud of my city, Birmingham, and the Aston, which of course doesn't exist now. I'm proud of my parents. I'm proud of my family as well. My wife, I made a good choice there.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, pride is not something that the word I would use really. I have a sense of satisfaction that I've achieved certain things, and I'm unfortunately, my bucket list of things that I want to do is getting longer every day as the amount of time that I'm going to have is getting shorter. But that's, I guess, the nature of the animal.
You have accumulated these principles over so many years. When you've invested a huge amount of your time and energy in these roles, now that you have decided to share them with the community, what does winning look like to you?
you know, in various in many of these roles, I think to me the highlight and the reward has been meeting so many incredible, inspirational people. You know, the old saying is that everybody has a story to tell,
Yes.
and if you stop and listen, you learn, but also you learn. It improves you, I think, when you hear of other people, because actually I've got awards and honours and so on, and I've met, and this is not false modesty, I've met so many people around that were so much more deserving of that than I am. And these are just great people. They're unsung. They don't really expect a lot of praise. They're doing it because they think it's the right thing to do. I got a lot of inspiration. I'm pretty damn sure, and this is not false modesty, that I've got at least as much inspiration from the people I've met in these various roles, and maybe they've got from me.
I'm sure. Yeah. Managing people's skills is extremely important, right? Some have these skills as part of their upbringing, and but if a person wants to develop these skills, what is your advice to them?
You can spend all day navel gazing, self-analyzing.
Yeah.
And what I try and tell my grandchildren, for example, is, you can spend a lot of time reading books and philosophizing. Sometimes instinct, it's just that thing called your gut. Sometimes it will tell you, and very often it leads you in the wrong direction, because believe you me, I guess I've failed more times than I've succeeded. That's part of my analogy, that you have to be at the wicket, and sometimes you play the wrong shot and you get out. But I think it is that don't necessarily overanalyze things. By all means, do your homework, and then just instinct. Just follow your instinct to some degree. And I think that is something that's very often overlooked. I equally think that, there are some people who weren't even in the room when the common sense was handed out by the good Lord. They weren't even in the room, and you have to try and evolve that sort of instinct. And instinct is another word for common sense, isn't it? Really, in a way. And I think that would be my message. But if you have that sort of person,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily have the common sense, but they have a great deal of ability and they can contribute, then you've got to get the best out of that person and look after that person.
Absolutely. They say it gets tougher to actually give away money than it is to actually make it. What principles do you apply to your giving? What's your giving pledge?
Birmingham and the Midlands gave me everything that I am, so I concentrate in that area. I think there's wonderful hospitals in London, but I will support those in the Midlands, not just for that reason. I married a Wolverhampton girl, so everything that I've got is half of hers, so that's her patch as well. So Birmingham and the Black Country are my patch, and that's where I concentrate my giving. That's my first criteria. I think the next thing is really focused around the need to get young people into the point where they can contribute to society and feel better about themselves. And so a lot of it will be directed at how we can reach and help young people. I mean, the Prince's Trust is a great example of an organisation that day in, day out is doing fantastic work. So that would be one of my main criteria. The other one has got to be proper corporate, and this is very important, proper corporate governance in charities. I won't name any names, but there's some big name charities, certainly a lot of them in London, where government, because some big known personality has got close to the PM or a senior minister, has got a lot of money. The corporate governance is rubbish. It's all been headline driven. You don't want people after headlines. You want people in charity at the ground floor working damned hard with proper corporate governance. So the other thing, which I think is of paramount importance, is that charities you give money to must have proper corporate. They must spend that money as if it were their own. Don't mind paying people who run charities, who are good, competent people, proper salaries. I don't want charities to get political in any way. Charities got nothing to do with politics. You leave your politics away. You leave it at home in the cupboard when you go and work for a charity.
Mm.
The charity it aims at there's proper proper corporate governance, and there's not a lot of political foolishness with them. And they're focused on that. That would be my criteria. That would be my two main criteria. The rest, really, well, goodness gracious, there's so many desperately needy causes out there, but there's no shortage of them. So then it's just serendipity to some degree. It's certain of them come to you at the right time, and you get involved emotionally, and you really get committed to it, and that's where your money goes. But that would be my basic criteria.
Yes, very true. What you said is absolutely correct. Sometimes the money that we donate to charities may or may not reach the actual source. And we need to ensure that it reaches the right source and for the right purpose. You are a Brummie and you love Birmingham and the Black Country. Yeah. Besides these, as a philanthropist, what were the other dynamics that made the transition to make you decide to give back to the community?
No, I think when I've got to find something to do for a start, and you know the companies I'm involved with now, they've got their management teams. Okay, I'm chairman of them, not in all cases, and that's an important role if you like, but it's not an executive role. And when you have executives, you don't get in their way. If you're the chairman, you put them there. They've got to do the work, not you.
Yeah.
So partly was actually I had time to look at these things and considering these things. Secondly, you know, I'm not wearing this. I'm not doing a Monty Python thing, but I came from a family where they never owned a car, never owned a house, and my needs aren't that great, frankly, nor are my wife's. I don't tell her that, of course, but I think that I don't have a great need for it. My children, my grandchildren are very well set up. They will not want anything, at least material. Concerns about how the public pound is spent.
Mm.
So my money would go in tax or inheritance tax when I finally pass on. And I don't necessarily think that the public pound is spent very well. And my objective is to try and find charities that can spend it better, more focused. And it's just because my financial needs aren't enormous. A lot more than most people's, I guess, because I've evolved a lifestyle, but they're not enormous in relation to my means. And what else am I going to do?
Very true. As a successful entrepreneur and a philanthropist, what matters most to you and why?
What matters to me, really, obviously, my family, always first and foremost, and just the state of society, really. I mean, we're passing it on, you know, to the younger generation. And I'll take it straight on the chin here. I don't think my generation has done such a good job, frankly, given the outcome that we have. So that matters to me. So it is how can we best help youngsters who are in this difficult time. Well, it's always difficult when you're a teenager, isn't it? It's complicated life in the world. How can we help them to get to the point where they're going to get a better life? Because if they got a better life, enough of them have got a better life, then it's a better society.
Very true. Educating youngsters about music is very crucial. It's very important. You have contributed so much to the arts. I know you have supported us on several occasions. You've attended our events in the past. What does music mean to you?
Right, I'm glad you raised that. But I am glad you raised that because to me, music is a really seriously important part of my life. I've got these fantastic systems now. I can get any sort of music anytime. I pay a modest amount a month to access this. I mean, I left school never ever having heard of Beethoven, literally, and so my music was always the music of. I mean, my wife and I were on the 1st of January 1960, the first day of the swinging 60s. My wife and I were both 16.
Okay.
It doesn't get any better than that because in that age, the swing, we were kids when the swinging 60s started. And that was fantastic music. I loved that music because it played so much to my childhood, my good youth and childhood. But that was all of the music I knew when I left school, really. I remember picking up a DVD or CD, what you call it, of Herbert von Karajan with the Beethoven concerto, symphonies.
Right.
And I started playing, and I thought, I mean, this is amazing. What is it all about? And since then, I've developed a love for music, all music. I'm not snobbish about it. I don't like jazz and I don't like big band music, but apart from that, I don't know why, but I don't. I love music, all sorts of music. I love opera. I'm passionate. Opera to me is just, it's just everything. It can transport me. And so to me, music is fantastic. And it's a great way to recreate. I think you can reach into yourself with music. So why is music important? All sorts of music. And you mentioned your music, you mentioned any sort of music. It really doesn't matter. If it gets to you, if it gives you peace, if it gives you some sort of inspiration, well, God, heaven's sake, I mean, let's develop it. So it is so important. And the point about my involvement as well with the conservatoire, is the idea that there's going to be youngsters, there's going to be some youngsters somewhere in the Birmingham, the Black Country now, who are potentially going to be mega superstars, whether they're heavy metal, which of course Birmingham is, the Midlands is the home of heavy metal, whether it's heavy metal or whether it's classical pianist or whatever, they're there. They probably don't know it. And if we can get them and get hold of them, then not only do they have a fantastic life, but they will come from communities where they can be role models for that generation. And what the young people now desperately need more than anything else is role models. And they get role, I believe Stormzy is somebody who's a role model to a lot of people, or some of these types of artists. Well, fine, I'm sure he's a great bloke. But I think that we need people, role models from all communities across all musical genres. Because yeah, you can't cure cancer with music. So doctors are pretty damned important. You can't solve global warming with music. So people who are looking at alternative energy sources are very important. But music is so important in life. It has been throughout the ages, and all sorts of music. And it's important with the work that you do, is that some forms, some musical genres could well, not get lost, but could be marginalized, and that would be sad. Because that music, when it originated in the communities where it originated, meant something to people. It told them something about themselves and their community. And I think absolutely that everything we should do to do that. And then people will look at me and they will say, "You're giving money to a music faculty? What about cancer? What about curing, I don't know, dementia or whatever, surely that's more important." Well, it's got a very important place in the firmament, and that's why I support it, and that's why I love it.
That's fantastic. Music transcends all barriers. Yes. So very inspiring. You are a role model to many. You've always been the chairman and CEO of several other companies. What is success to you?
I have tried to do the right thing for my family, really. I've just lived an okay life. I mean, it's a saint, that's for sure. You start sending messages to young people, I think that is counterproductive. I think that somebody said to me recently, integrity is something you're born with. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that. It's a bit of a fatalistic concept. I think the only thing you can do is honestly, if it doesn't feel right to you, if you're doing something and you know that it's probably hurting somebody else, well, think about it really. What goes around comes around, really. I don't think there's any. I think they have to feel it themselves, and the people to influence them have got to be their family and their friends and their close circle, and they've got to relate to them.
Right. So, what's the next step in your life, Keith?
I want to get a little jab in my arm, which will enable me to live a normal life again. Let's hope they use a vaccine to do that. And then I want to travel a lot more. Isn't it amazing? When you can't do things, you suddenly realize how desperately you want to do them.
Yes.
When you can't visit friends, you desperately realize just how badly you wanted to visit those friends. And we have some good friends from all over the world. And I want to keep that thought in my head so that if the good Lord gets us through this virus and gives me more years, I want to do some of those things. I want to keep that thought in my head and not lose it. So I want to go, I want to travel, I want to spend time with friends, I want to experience things because it's a fabulous world and there are wonderful, we focus always on the negative, isn't it? Talk about accentuate the negative. We're accentuating bad press at the moment. I mean, I know I'm going to a boring old so-and-so routine, but most people in my generation regard the press and the way they're dealing with this now as an absolute disgrace. They look for the negatives, it's self-aggrandizement. I'm a journalist, I'm going to break a story. No sense of balance to that at all. And I just want to, break that and just get out and just enjoy what's left in my life and do it in a positive way rather than looking at, who we can criticize on what basis.
Right. Very inspiring. Now we come to the end of the first segment of our chat, and the second segment is called The Lighter Side of You. How would you describe yourself, Keith, in 3 words?
I would say stubborn, selfish, and a dreamer.
Sorry?
And a dreamer. A dreamer, a bit of a water mitty.
Right. Okay, interesting. Your favorite holiday spot?
I like Australia, New Zealand.
Your favorite book?
The one I read as a very young man was The Wind in the Willows. I liked it.
When you walk into a room and when you hear your favorite song, what would that one song be?
I think I Got You, Babe, Sonny and Cher. We played that on our the day we announced our engagement party. I Got You, Babe.
Your favorite cuisine?
My favorite fruit. I like blueberries.
What is that one thing that you would want to change in this world?
I think the one thing I would most like to change is something I could never mention.
Okay.
And that's a genuine answer.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And it's not passing the buck. I'm answering your question absolutely, as I probably tried to do, straight ahead on. Yeah, it's something that I couldn't mention, but I wish to God it hadn't happened, and I was responsible for it. So,
perfect. What is your dream job, or rather, what would have been your dream job?
I want to open a batting for England and win the Ashes. That would have been my dream job.
Right. Who are your role models?
My dad.
Your favorite movie?
Dr. Zhivago.
Okay.
Although I put A Man for All Seasons as a very close second, if I'm allowed to do that.
Oh, right. Okay. Are you a very serious or a fun-loving person?
I guess I'm open towards the serious side of it, I'm afraid. I probably haven't had as much fun as I ought to have had.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you for the opportunity. I do appreciate it.
It's my great honor. Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you for your time.